You know exactly what the next step is. You've known for a while. God has made it clear through the word, through prayer, through the persistent pulling of your spirit towards something specific, and you haven't taken it. Not because you don't believe God, not because you don't want to obey, but because every time you get close to the edge of that step, fear shows up, and it locks you in place, and the step you were supposed to have taken months ago is still waiting. Today, I want you to hear directly what God is saying to you in that frozen place, because He has not been silent, and what He is saying is going to move something in you that fear has been holding down. The step is in front of you. Maybe it's the conversation you've been avoiding because you don't know how it will land. Maybe it's the business, the ministry, the creative project that God has placed in you and you haven't launched it because what if it fails? What if nobody shows up? What if you put everything you have into it and it doesn't work? Maybe it's the relationship, saying yes to something or saying no to something, and fear of the outcome has kept you in limbo. Maybe it's simply stepping out of a comfortable season into an uncertain one because God said go and your flesh said wait. And the longer you wait, the more sophisticated fear becomes. It stops sounding like fear and starts sounding like wisdom. It says, be careful, be realistic, be responsible. It surrounds itself with reasonable questions. What about the risk? What about the people who are depending on you? What about your track record? Remember last time you stepped out and it didn't work? And so you stay. Not because you gave up, but because fear made staying feel like the smart choice. And on the inside, in the quiet, honest moments, you know something is being lost. You can feel the cost of not moving, the slowly fading confidence that the promise was real, the growing distance between the version of you that said yes to the calling and the version of you that keeps choosing the familiar. God has not been silent in that space, and today I need you to hear what He has been saying. Go to the book of Joshua, chapter 1. Moses has just died, the man who led Israel for 40 years, the man the people had trusted with their entire lives, is gone, and Joshua is standing at the entrance of the greatest assignment of his life, leading 2 million people across the Jordan River into territory they have never seen, filled with enemies they have never faced, and a future they have only believed as a promise.
The weight of what is being asked of him is immense, and God knows it. And look at what He says to Joshua in verse 9. Have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. Notice the structure of that verse. God doesn't begin by explaining away the danger. He doesn't minimize what Joshua is facing or tell him the enemy isn't real. He says, have not I commanded thee? He starts with the command, the calling, the assignment, and then He gives the only answer to the fear that actually works. The Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. The answer to Joshua's fear was not more preparation. It was not a better strategy. It was not waiting until he felt more ready. The answer was the presence of God in every single place Joshua was called to go. Not ahead of Joshua and not behind. With him, every step, every battle, every uncertain tomorrow. Here is what most people misunderstand about the relationship between fear and faith. They think fear must be completely gone before they can take the step, but that is not what Scripture teaches. God told Joshua to be strong and courageous, which implies that the temptation to be weak and afraid was present. You don't command someone to be not afraid unless fear is a real and active force in the situation. God was not pretending the danger wasn't real. He was giving Joshua the authority to move despite the fear because of the reality of God's presence. And 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 gives us the theological framework for why fear never had the authority it claims to have over you. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. God hath not given us the spirit of fear. That means fear, in its paralyzing, step-stopping form, is not from God. It is a spirit. It has a source, and that source is not the throne of heaven. Which means every time fear tells you that staying is safer, that waiting is wiser, that the step is too dangerous, it is speaking from an authority God never granted it, and you have been giving it more deference than it deserves.
God gave you power. He gave you love. He gave you a sound mind. 3 things that are the direct counterweight to everything fear does. Fear tells you that you are powerless. God says you have power. Fear tells you to protect yourself. God gave you love that casts fear out. Fear tells you the situation is chaotic and out of control. God gave you a sound mind to think clearly, to discern, to decide from a place of peace rather than panic. Let these words land in the exact place where fear has been holding authority. Fear is not from God, which means it has no legitimate claim over the step God told you to take. God did not tell Joshua that the enemies weren't real. He told Joshua that he was more real than the enemies. That is the only argument fear cannot survive. And hear this. The step you are afraid to take is the exact step where God has promised to be with you. He cannot accompany you somewhere you refuse to go. Now go to Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. And I want you to hear this not as a verse you've seen on a coffee mug. I want you to hear it as the living word of a God who is specifically speaking to the person who is frozen right now. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee. Yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. Count the commitments God makes in that single verse. I am with thee. 1. I am thy God. 2. I will strengthen thee. 3. I will help thee. 4. I will uphold thee. 5. With the right hand of his righteousness. 5 declarations of God's active, personal, committed involvement in the next step of your life. 5 reasons that fear's argument has no legal standing before the throne of God. He is not saying, take the step and see how it goes. He is saying, take the step and I will be there before you land. He is not promising an easy path. He is promising an accompanied one. And an accompanied step into the unknown is infinitely safer than a comfortable step that keeps you from where God is calling you. And then 1 John 4 verse 18 reveals the deepest solution to fear that exists. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. Perfect love casteth out fear. Not discipline, not courage building, not self-talk. Love. The love of God, the fullness of knowing that you are held, known, chosen, valued, and accompanied by the God of the universe. That love, when you fully receive it, dismantles fear at the root. Because fear fundamentally asks, will I be okay? And the love of God answers, not just okay, but upheld, strengthened, helped, accompanied, eternally, unshakably, in the right hand of righteousness. Think about David, a man who faced armies, betrayal, Goliath, his own failures, and wrote in Psalm 27 verse 1, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" He is not asking rhetorical questions from a place of fearless invincibility. He is making declarations that defied his circumstances. He chose to let the identity of God be larger than the identity of his fear. And that decision, made before the battle, before the outcome was certain, before the enemy was defeated, is the same decision that is waiting for you today.
Whom shall I fear? When the Lord is your light, fear has no darkness to hide in. When the Lord is your salvation, fear has no threat to dangle. When the Lord is the strength of your life, fear has no leverage to take your knees from under you. It still shows up, but it no longer gets to decide where you go. So today, I want to be direct with you. The step is still there. God has not changed his mind about it. He has not retracted the call or reassigned it to someone less afraid. The step is there and it is yours. And he has been waiting, not impatiently, but consistently, for you to move. And he has been saying to you every day you have been standing at the edge of that step, what he said to Joshua, I am with thee whithersoever thou goest. Not just on the days when it works, not just in the outcomes you hoped for. In every place that step takes you, he is there, already, before you arrive. So take the step, not because the fear is gone. It may not be fully gone, but because the God who is with you is greater than the fear that is opposing you. Because the spirit of fear was never from him, and it is time to stop letting it speak with his authority. Because the love of God, perfect and personal and permanent, has already cast the sentence on fear, and fear is already lost. Your next step is not the edge of a cliff, it is the beginning of the place where God promised to be with you. And the only way to discover that is to take it. If this message gave you the push you needed today, drop a comment below. Just say, I'm taking the step. Let that be your public declaration of faith. And if this channel has been speaking courage into your faith walk, subscribe and stay with us. Every single week, we return to the Word and find our way back to the God who says, fear thou not, and means it. He is with you. Take the step.